Welcome. The righteous Lord loveth righteousness. That's one of the lines from the psalm that we're looking at today, Psalm 11. My name is Keith Simons. I'm a Bible teacher from England, and I present these talks on how to understand the King James Bible using the Psalms. Each week we look at a different psalm, going through it verse by verse and word by word, understanding its meaning. So today it's Psalm 11. As usual, we begin by looking at the ancient heading of the psalm. Just simply says, to the chief musician, which tells us, of course, that this was one of the songs written for the worship of God at his temple, the house of God in Jerusalem. And then a psalm of David to show that David was the author of this psalm. This seems to be yet another of these psalms, we've been looking at a few recently, which were inspired by the time when David had to escape Jerusalem when his son Absalom organised a revolution against him. And David begins, verse 1, "In the Lord put I my trust." He's trusting in the Lord, in God. The name Lord appears in block capitals in our translation to remind us that this is God's most holy name, the name that the Jewish people won't even pronounce out of reverence for God. It's in God, the real God, that I put my trust. I can trust him in every situation, even in the situation of great danger and trouble that I am in now, David thinks to himself. I'm trusting God, even though my world has fallen apart, even though I've been forced from my home, from my palace, from the city of Jerusalem, which I've established as the capital city of Israel. Yet I still have the Lord to trust in. I can't trust my armies, my wealth, my success. I trust in the living God. And because I trust in the living God, says David, I'm confident. I'm confident that those who speak against me are wrong. So David asks this question, the second half of verse 1. How say ye to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? Okay, this was something that people were saying to David, or rather to David's soul. David was hearing this deep inside him, the words of these people. Now, some have suggested that these are the words of David's advisors telling him to run away to a place of safety. Well, that's possible, but maybe more they sound like the words of David's enemies. What David's enemies would say to David, what David is feeling deep in his soul as he feels a sense of fear and worry about them. But David dismisses the words that they say with, how say ye to my soul? In other words, I consider these words, these thoughts that are coming into my mind, these things that I'm hearing, I consider them to have no value, because it's in the Lord that I put my trust. Because I am trusting God, what you are saying to me has no value. It's just a worthless threat. It's just something to worry me. I'm trusting God, says David. So let's look now at what was being said to him. There's various ideas of this. Some people think that what's being said to him goes all the way from the word flee right to the end of verse 3. Other people think that it's just this one line, flee as a bird to your mountain. So let's look initially at this first question. This first phrase, flee as a bird to your mountain. Flee, run away. Run away as a bird, like a bird does. So when you're scaring birds, you shout at them or whatever, and they all fly away suddenly to a place of safety, and that safety is their mountain. You'll see it says the word your mountain. It doesn't say, as we might expect, flee as a bird to thy mountain, meaning that this was to David alone. No, it's saying David and his friends have their safe place. They should escape to them. But this phrase, it sounds almost like what you're shouting. In the Hebrew, that word for bird could be a collective noun meaning plural birds. So it could be saying to David, flee, run away. And then the call you might shout at birds, birds to your mountain. So this seems to be an instruction to try to scare David. And verse 2, which explains in a little more detail why he should be scared, maybe helps us to explain that. For lo, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privily shoot at the upright in heart. Lo, look, wicked people have become powerful in Israel. Wicked people are ready to attack. They're going to attack the upright in heart. That's another plural word. So they're shooting at all those who are upright, those who do the right things or want to do the right things or have the desire to do right things deep in their heart. So the wicked are trying to attack and to kill God's people. How are they trying to attack them? Well, with bows and arrows. Today we'd use guns, wouldn't we? But they were using bows and arrows, which was the most terrifying weapon that they possessed at that time. The idea that someone could injure you or even kill you from a great distance. And the wicked people in this verse, they're all ready to carry out this attack. The bow is already bent. The arrow is upon the string. So they are at the very point at which they would release that arrow to shoot at these upright people. And if that were not terrifying enough, they are privily shooting at them. Privily, that means privately, secretly. The Hebrew word means in the dark. So it's in the darkness. We cannot see the people who are shooting. Look, the psalm says, look, there are wicked people in the darkness who are ready to shoot and kill everyone who is trying to do what is good and right. That's why David should flee as a bird to the mountains where he is safe. That's why David should escape and run away and hide himself. The nation is in great danger. David is in great danger. The people who are upright in Israel are in great danger. Verse 3, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? There's two ideas as to how to understand this verse. The one is to make it part of the quotation that began in verse 1 and to say these people who are trying to worry David add in this thought. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? The foundations means the base of a building. So maybe this means the strong foundations of the nation. David set up this nation to be a strong place where Israel's people can serve God and can be loyal to God. But that base on which David established Israel has been destroyed, or it seems to have been destroyed. And if it's been destroyed, what can a righteous man do? David is the righteous man here, surely, because David is seeking to serve God. A righteous person means a good person. How can he stand now that the wicked people have gained such power, now that they are attacking and killing those who are upright in heart, verse 2, now that they are destroying the foundations of his kingdom, what can David as a righteous man do in that situation? Oh, but there's another meaning which has been suggested to verse 3, which is, if the foundations for what the evil people are destroyed, what then has the righteous one, what has God done? Well, that meaning isn't the meaning put on the King James Version, because of course we've got the question, what can the righteous do? What can this righteous man do? But that is a valid possibility from the Hebrew. And if that other meaning is correct, if this is saying, what has God done? That when wicked people are so powerful, he's removed their power. That introduces us rather well to verse 4. Because the verse 4 declares to us what God is doing. And we realise that the wicked people looked so powerful to us because we were looking at them in this world. We were looking at the power they were exercising over the country that David had ruled. But we weren't looking beyond that. We weren't looking beyond that to heaven. We weren't looking to God's throne. We were only looking at what wicked people were doing in this world. So we better look at heaven. Verse 4, the Lord is in his holy temple. Oh, the Lord, who David puts his trust in, this, the living God, the true God, he that is always God, he hasn't lost his place of power and authority. At the time of David, the temple in Jerusalem didn't exist yet. It was his son Solomon who built it. So when David writes, the Lord is in his holy temple, he must be thinking about the temple of God in heaven. God hasn't been removed from his place in heaven. The Lord's throne is in heaven, his royal seat. God sits with royal authority there. God is king. Yes, David was a king, and now Absalom had made himself king, David's son who opposed him. But their power was limited, but God's power is unlimited. The Lord's throne is in heaven. God has not lost his power. All this trouble on earth, all these wicked people trying to kill good people, the foundations of David's kingdom have been destroyed, and he as a righteous man can do nothing about it. But David is trusting the Lord, and the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. So what is God doing? Well, God is looking. He looks, and what power there is in his look. His eyes behold, his eyelids try the children of men. He tries them. He tests them. He tests them like silver is refined in the fire. Such power there is in a look, in a glance of God, that he tests people to see whether they truly are his people, whether there is truly anything good in them. And if not, he would destroy their power. God's eyes behold, his eyelids try. It's as if God is looking, and he closes his eyelids together to look in a more focused, more direct way. And the power of that look is what tests people. Verse 5, the Lord trieth the righteous. Yes, David as a righteous man was experiencing God testing him to see whether he truly would trust God in this terrible situation, whether he truly would stand firm for God when enemies seemed so powerful. God was testing him. But what of the wicked people? Was God testing them? But the wicked and him that loveth violence, his soul hateth. No, God could see that there was nothing good in these wicked people. He saw their wrong motives and their wrong ambitions. He saw that they were continually trying to do evil things. He saw their cruelty. He saw the way they were shooting those arrows in verse 2. He saw that they loved that cruelty. And God saw it, and deep within him, his soul hated what they were doing. His soul hated them for that evil act. And although God would have very much liked them to turn back to him, although God would have received them back had they turned from those violent and evil ways, and God wanted to forgive them and give them back a right relationship with him, if they persisted in those wicked acts, if they persisted in that cruelty and that violence, then be sure of this: God's judgment is against them. And God's judgment is firm and definite and terrible. Verse 6. Upon the wicked, he, that's God, he shall rain snares, fire and brimstone, and an horrible tempest. Okay, he rains down these things. They're coming down from heaven like the rain upon them. This tremendous suffering, because God's judgment is against these wicked people and their evil deeds. Fire and brimstone. Brimstone we call today sulphur. It's a chemical that burns with an overpowering and an unpleasant smell. An horrible tempest. That's describing wind, powerful winds that are blowing against them. A tempest means a storm. Snares is the most difficult of these. Snares means traps, such as you'd use for catching a bird, such as a noose that you might use to put round the neck of a bird to kill it. And this is coming down from God in heaven or from the skies upon the wicked. This is their judgment. God has a terrible judgment against evil people if they will not turn back to God. They thought that they would make a terrible judgment against God's people. They thought that they would defeat God's people. Verse 2. For lo, the wicked bend their bow. They make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privily shoot at the upright in heart. But what is God's response? What is God's judgment against them? He's turned their punishment, their cruelty against them themselves, and he's made it 10 times, 100 times worse. They shot arrows that could injure and kill. They suffered snares and fire and brimstone and a horrible tempest. Terrible things. This shall be the portion of their cup. Like when one passes round a glass of wine, and each person has to drink from it, and has to drink from it whatever that wine contains, however disturbing, however terrible the taste, that person has to drink of it. These wicked people, if they will not turn from their evil deeds, if they will not turn back to God, then this shall be the portion of their cup, the part of the cup that they must drink. They must drink this. They must suffer these troubles. Verse 7 brings us to a conclusion. It says, For the righteous Lord loveth righteousness. Oh, this Lord, in whom David puts his trust, this God is a righteous God. He stands for what is good and what is right. Everything he does is good and right and proper, and therefore he loves those people who do what is good and right, who've turned from their evil deeds to trust in him. That is why God supported David. Yes, David did many wrong things. David was not a perfectly righteous man, far from it. But David, when he did wrong things, turned back to God. He asked God to forgive him. He put his trust again in God. And God's reaction was of love towards him, because he, the righteous God, saw the righteousness which he'd given to David and which David had gladly received and chosen to live by. And therefore, God loved David. God loved the way that David was standing firm for him, even in these terrible situations. The end of verse 7 says that God's countenance doth behold the upright. There's a bit of a discussion as to whether the King James translators have that the right way round. It would be an equally valid translation of the Hebrew to say that the upright man shall behold God's countenance, which means God's face. Yes, God will permit his people to see him face to face. They will be together with him and with him for all eternity. But if we take it as the King James has it, God's countenance, God's face, doth behold the upright. God sees the upright when he looks towards them. God sees them, and how wonderful that is. God's eyes behold, his eyelids try the children of men. God looks at his people, those who are doing what is right. At David, as he faithfully serves God, God sees him, and he looks with his face, and he approves, and he places his blessing upon him. Because with God's blessing, David shall not continue in these troubles forever. No, David shall be freed from these troubles, and God will bring him back to his place and to his authority, and this rebellion will be at an end, because wicked people will not always rule. And just as that happened to David, so we see it happening in a greater and a better way to David's son or descendant, King Messiah. Oh, God loved Messiah's righteousness. God loves the righteousness of his Christ. He sees Christ, and it is his desire to bring him to a position of total authority, a position of ruling over all. And so, although Messiah's enemies oppose him, although they fight against him, although they try to destroy his power, and although they try to destroy his people, yet be sure of this: the righteous Lord loveth righteousness, and his countenance doth behold the upright man, the person who is truly serving God. Please write to me. My email address is 333kjv@gmail.com. That's 333kjv@gmail.com. And now, here is the whole of Psalm 11. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. In the Lord put I my trust. How say ye to my soul, flee as a bird to your mountain? For lo, the wicked bend their bow, they make ready their arrow upon the string, that they may privily shoot at the upright in heart. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes behold, his eyelids try the children of men. The Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked and him that loveth violence his soul hateth. Upon the wicked he shall rain snares, fire and brimstone, and an horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup. For the righteous Lord loveth righteousness. His countenance doth behold the upright.